Oh, hi there. There was nothing quite like the feeling of getting a gaming magazine in the mail as a kid. My parents had got me a subscription to PSM, PlayStation Magazine, and I still remember their coverage of GTA San Andreas that got me so hyped. And there used to be so many of these magazines to choose from. But in the United States, each would slowly cease to exist until Game Informer magazine was the only one left. That was until early August 2024, when the magazine was abruptly ended. While this is disappointing, in the age of the internet, a print publication being discontinued isn't shocking. But in tandem with the shuttering of Game Informer, the magazine's publisher, GameStop, deleted the entire Game Informer website and all of its archives, creating a lost media nightmare. In this video, we'll go over the history of Game Informer, its unexpected cancellation, the lost media it may have created, and the efforts to try to archive 33 years of gaming history. Enjoy. Bad habits are hard to break, but something that can make the process a lot easier is today's sponsor, Fume. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device that satisfies your oral fixation through a passive diffusion system that uses no electronics, no vapor, no nicotine, no batteries or combustion. Just great tasting flavored air that fills that void when trying to ditch a bad habit. Coming in a bunch of different flavors, like crisp mint, black licorice, my favorite, orange vanilla, and many more. All with no downsides, backed by physicians and supported by third-party studies that ensure its safety. And the device is just great for fidgeting. When you buy your Fume, you can also buy one of these cool magnetic bases, and I just keep it on my desk and mess with it all day. Fume has served over 300,000 customers, and you could be the next success story. For a limited time only, use my code ALLTHINGSLOST to get your free topper. It's the perfect accessory to your Fume device. Slip it into the mouthpiece for a softer, warmer feel. It's chewable for all those who love to fidget and reusable. Head to tryfume.com. That's tryfum.com and use code ALLTHINGSLOST or scan the QR code on screen to get your free Fume topper when you order the Journey Pack today. The formation of Game Informer is really the story of two separate companies, Funko and Babbage's. Both got their start around the same time in the mid-80s, selling consumer electronics on different ends of the United States. Babbage's was a Dallas-based electronics store who in 1999 launched their strip mall retail chain, GameStop. Funko, on the other hand, not to be confused with Funko Pops, started as a Minnesota-based mail-order company, opening their first gaming retail store in 1990. Funkoland. Funkoland was an instant success, and in August 1991, they published their first bi-monthly magazine, Game Informer. This short magazine mainly served as a clever way to get the Funkoland mail-order catalog in the hands of gaming enthusiasts. But it also had reviews, sweepstakes, editorials, gaming tips, and they even sold mail-order band merch, which is kind of funny to me since you can't actually see what the merch looks like before you order it. The magazine proved so popular that by November 1994, it began a monthly release schedule. And in August 1996, they launched Game Informer Online, an online publication of articles and daily news. And this kind of website was way ahead of its time. For reference, the Nintendo 64 wouldn't be released in the United States until a month after the site launched, and a full 2 years before Pokemon came to the West. Funkoland cemented itself as a rising star, listed on Fortune magazine's list of fastest growing businesses twice. Funko and Babbage's would meet in the year 2000 when they were separately purchased by Barnes & Noble for a combined total of $375 million. Funko and Babbage's merged, and this newly formed company was named after its flagship store, GameStop. This purchase and merger included Game Informer, though the Game Informer website was temporarily shut down for a few years until it was revived in 2003 with a full redesign. In 2004, GameStop would officially become its own independent company, separate from Barnes & Noble. And from here, business really took off, becoming the largest video game retailer in the world, with over 4,100 locations worldwide. Under GameStop, Game Informer magazine served as a major part of the company's loyalty program, formerly known as Power Up Rewards, where for a yearly fee you'd get a series of discounts and a year's subscription to Game Informer magazine. And under GameStop, the magazine began annual traditions, like a top 50 games of the year, an August edition that highlighted the best of the E3 Gaming Expo, and controversial editions, like their April issues, that were full of April Fool's Day pranks that became the source of gaming urban legends for decades, and their sacred cow barbecues that would roast popular video games. All games were reviewed on a scale of 0 to 10, with only 32 games ever receiving a perfect score, starting with a retro review of Super Mario World in 2000 and ending with 2022's Elden Ring. But disappointingly, they had an option to give a score of 0, but they never gave it out, which is just so typical of the video game industry to be too afraid to give out a score that low. Under Funko, Game Informer was a moderate success, but under GameStop, the magazine would grow exponentially. By 2010, Game Informer was the 5th most popular magazine in the United States, topping legendary publications like Playboy, Time, and Sports Illustrated, reaching its peak in 2011 at number 3 with 8 million copies circulated, where it would remain for the next few years, falling to 4th place in 2014. And even though print media as a whole was on a decline, Game Informer was still seeing growth. As other gaming magazines would shutter, it left them with less and less competition. And while the magazine was thriving, GameStop as a whole was not, starting to feel the effects of online retailers. Around 2017, GameStop would begin to expand on some of its most unpopular business practices. They became really pushy about pre-orders and rewards cards, barely paying anything for used games, and giving employees strict quotas, which led many employees to lie to customers to keep their job. These practices helped in the short term, but pushed customers away to more convenient places to buy games. And eventually, the decline of GameStop would catch up to Game Informer magazine. In August 2019, half of the entire Game Informer staff was fired, including many longtime employees as part of larger company-wide layoffs. And this decision led many senior members of Game Informer to leave the company in protest. But each year, it just kept coming. Even in 2021, during the peak of the GameStop short squeeze, when the company's stock went from $17.50 a share to over $500 a share, the company was still making cuts. And that year, GameStop entered the NFT business, which is probably the biggest red flag that things aren't going well. All this time, Game Informer magazine was trying to mitigate the losses. In 2021, they began producing limited variant issues called Game Informer Gold that used high-quality paper and had an alternate cover. But this didn't stop the layoffs, and in 2022, the magazine was left with none of its original staff. The writing was on the wall. And in early 2024, the magazine was removed from GameStop's reward program, making a subscription to the magazine its own thing, not tied to any other part of the company. A yearly subscription was $19.91 to celebrate the year the magazine was founded. By this point, it was really just a skeleton crew, both making the magazine and running the website. There was some hope that maybe this was all a good sign, that maybe the magazine was distancing themselves from GameStop as a company, and that there was a chance that Game Informer would become independent, or that it might be sold off to another company. But in the end, neither would happen. On August 2nd, 2024, staff were called into a meeting where it was announced that Game Informer magazine would no longer exist. The closure was publicly announced on Twitter before all staff members had been informed. And the farewell tweet was met with further controversy, as it wasn't written by anyone at Game Informer and appears to be AI generated. The final level, farewell from Game Informer. After 33 thrilling years of bringing you the latest news, reviews, and insights from the ever-evolving world of gaming, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of Game Informer. From the early days of pixelated adventures to today's immersive virtual realms, we've been honored to share this incredible journey with you, our loyal readers. While our presses may stop, the passion for gaming that we've cultivated together will continue to live on. Thank you for being a part of our epic quest, and may your own gaming adventures never end. The July 2024 edition of Game Informer, issue number 367, was believed to be the farewell issue, but issue 368 was received by subscribers in August, even though the magazine's content director, Kyle Hilliard, said it was only 70% finished. Now, like I said at the beginning of this video, everything comes to an end, and that's okay. No one is under the delusion that in the age of the internet, print media is guaranteed. But what GameStop did next was unbelievable. Before they even made the announcement on Twitter, and before all staff had been notified, they deleted everything. All URLs from the Game Informer website now lead to the official statement. Every review, article, report, game preview, interview, feature, decades of gaming journalism, gaming history, and all of their first-party archives, gone. Following the entire website being nuked, Game Informer's Twitter briefly returned to give the magazine a proper farewell. Our 33-year legacy deserves a genuine goodbye, written by a former Game Informer employee. We are heartbroken by the shutdown of our publication, yet we leave with pride, knowing we poured everything we had into it. In the words of our editor-in-chief, be well, play well. But following this post, the Twitter account was completely wiped, implying that this final tweet was done by a rogue employee who still had access to the account. Since the abrupt cancellation, other groups have given Game Informer staff a platform to say the goodbye they were denied, like the publication Aftermath and the YouTube channel MinMax. Archival projects are currently in the works to preserve everything that's been lost, but things are a little complicated. There's a general rule that when archiving magazines, you can only make them publicly available online 10 years after they were released, or run the risk of a lawsuit. So it can be difficult to find any Game Informer magazines since 2015 readily available online, but it's currently believed that all issues of Game Informer have been scanned and are waiting to be released publicly. But the frustrating part is that we really won't know how much has been archived until it's completely released, whether that be 10 years after the release of the final issue of Game Informer, or when the GameStop company gives their blessing to release all issues of the magazine. But beyond preserving each edition of the physical magazine, there's also a push to archive all additional content from the Game Informer website, which has been a nightmare. The Wayback Machine has been invaluable to the search, but it's often incomplete, meaning that some of the Game Informer website might be lost. But again, right now it's difficult to say. But even past the materials that have been released to the public, there still remain the question of the unreleased media still held in the Game Informer offices. Game Informer has been reviewing games since the 16-bit era, so we're talking decades worth of footage of classic games, unreleased builds, concept art, production and design documents. All this material locked behind their office doors in Minneapolis. And something pointed out by Jake Baldino on his YouTube channel are that some of the first looks that Game Informer was given over the years for titles like Borderlands, Max Payne, and The Witcher all ended up being completely different from the final game. And there are likely more of these first looks that we have never seen, currently in limbo at the Game Informer offices. All in all, ending Game Informer like this is wildly disrespectful, and really just unclassy for no reason. Like I said before, it's okay for things to end, but there is a right way to do it, and then there's what GameStop did to the legendary publication, Game Informer. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the video, and leave a comment with your suggestions for future videos. Thanks to Fume for sponsoring this video. Big shout out to my top tier Patreon supporters, Miss Dana, Odesta Honeycrisp, Vinny Cataldo, Can You Say Rocote Mafleur, and Otterly Happy. Thank you all so much for making these videos possible. This is Mike with All Things Lost. I'll see you soon.